All right, welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Investor Podcast. So excited. I have someone here who she, I can tell already, is going to weave through like this whole realm of inspiration and kind of what she's been doing in life. And I think elevate us all, myself included, to the next level. She has been doing that. She's been in the mastermind for the last 12 weeks, and she has definitely shifted us all with her questions, her attention, her love, her vulnerability for sure, just bringing herself to it. Her name is Jess Erceg. Erceg. I said it right the second
Erceg.
time. And you guys, I've practiced this before. That's how horrible I am. She is a mortgage broker and an energy healer. Is that not the most perfect combination you've ever seen in your life? And you'll sort of feel that weave through her as well. She's got more the intellect side and the energy side, and just, she's the 3D and the 5D merge. So it's perfect. So thank you for being here, Jess. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm very excited and honored to be here. And you said the word elevate, which is actually my word going into 2025. So look at
Really?
the connection there. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
So do you choose a power word like at the beginning of the year?
I do, j to anchor, you know how like intention is really everything. And so usually when I reflect back at the end of the year, I can see how that's infused into my year. And
Mhm.
so I chose Elevate because I'm so grateful for all the things that I have received. And I think this will like come up as far as what we discussed today. And like I've always been like supported, but I wanted to elevate on top of that. And even the beginning of the year when I said that word, I had all these experiences that were elevated. As I got invited to a football game and got to go like on the field and meet all the players and like for free, for free. So like I got all these elevated experiences and I was like, oh my gosh. So I've just seen how like setting that intention infuses actually what we experience.
Wow. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
I think you're already speaking the language of everyone here who's listening to this. I know there's other aspects of your story that also very much intertwine with the listener's story as well. And I think that it's some things that they've been wondering about themselves and how do I solve this and how do I navigate around this? Because, I mean, the whole reason we come here on this podcast is to bridge the gap so that we can sort of, okay, how can we go back into our day and be like, okay, I can utilize this, I can practice it, I can move forward and have some tangible value, even if it's just like feeling happier. And that's probably coming up because we have happiness month going on inside
We
of
did.
the club, which is really fun. But I wanted to ask you, you know, the word waiting has definitely been a big thing for you. I know that you'd put it on sort of like your celebration form at the end and you had talked about it also in the mastermind. And then I looked back at your mastermind application, which is this is why I love like just being able to see the beginning and the end is just so valuable. And you had mentioned that and you said that you knew you'd been waiting and you'd even waited to join the mastermind and you'd waited to invest as well. Can you
Yeah.
talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So waiting, yeah, this is a great topic. So I think what I said was considered the queen of waiting. I would say when X happens, this will happen, but then that never, those things were not happening. And so even with the mastermind, I was like, okay, I want to sign up because the way that I'm going to expand is actually being in the energy, learning from you. If I want something to change, I have to have something change. And I think the last day before the price increase is when I signed up. And I think like 2 weeks, I think I applied like, weeks in advance and your team was like, we're so excited to have you. And I was like, yeah, me too. And then, but I knew I needed to do it, but it was just this like, I'm also an emotional authority. So I knew I needed to ride a little bit of that wave. So I had ridden it. Then I was like, nothing's going to change if I don't do this. And I actually had met with a financial advisor before signing up for the mastermind and just something like was going through it just didn't connect with me, which I'm actually kind of glad that I did that because then going through just the mastermind in itself, like it just brought this power and knowledge. So I know what I'm doing when it comes to investing. And now I'm not in this waiting energy. I feel like the waiting energy too was bringing me into this period of stagnation where I think I mentioned like I've always been supported, and I do have some debt. I own real estate, but that's not the debt that I'm talking about. I'm talking about non-asset backed debt. So I was like, when that is cleared, I'll invest in
Mhm.
this. Then I can actually, have my money grow for me. But I was putting money into a high yield savings account, and I was like, yeah, that's making me like some money. But then I realized like I'm just being supported because that's the actions that I'm taking. And so like, and my money's only going so far in this, high yield savings account, and then I'm transferring money into different checking accounts, and it's just sitting there. So it's just in this stagnant energy, which is this waiting energy that I've, been in. So of course nothing's like moving as, in the realm that I was hoping for. And so once I invested into the mastermind and got into the space, and you taught us, the things that like you've taught us, and we made that like first investment, like everything has expanded. I'm like, oh my gosh, my money's in an account that's
Mhm.
expanding. Things are changing. You talk a lot about momentum, like momentum is happening in other realms. And I was like, oh, so then that like now I can see where if something comes up, because I think when we pattern interrupt, like I'll be tested again to make sure, am I waiting? And I feel the disconnect now because I, have identified it, and we went through it through the mastermind. And now when it comes up, I'm like, oh, this does not meet the version of myself anymore of where I'm at now.
Wow. So now you can feel the difference from the new version who I would say does more of the things that you or is more in line with your desires, right? That you had kind
Hmm.
of going into it versus the waiting version. Now, do you
Yeah.
feel that when you say a disconnect, do you feel that in your body? Do you feel that in your behaviors? Or is that even like, am I even on the right track with that?
No, you are in the right track. I feel like I feel like as far as like the disconnect, it's just very apparent like in my body where I'm like, oh, like are you gonna do this again? Or are you gonna meet, the person who you want to be and the things that, you want to call in? So for me, I feel like a lot of things I feel like in my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say probably most people listening to this probably do as well. I know I do as well. And I'm glad you brought up the emotional authority thing because I think that that sometimes gets confused. Emotional authority, let me think about this versus let me wait. And I'm an emotional authority too, so I believe me, I live it, I get it. Um, also there's a couple of things. So like for me, when I'm waiting on something, what I find is I'm still grappling for an answer. And if I'm still grappling for an answer, then I'm in my I would say more of my unconscious state because when I'm in my conscious state, I'm very clear. And even if I'm not going, yes, I'm going to do that right now, I'm very clear that I'm going to have decided. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like a power behind it. I think for me also, I can tell the difference in waiting versus like emotional authority, which is, I would say, your power, versus waiting, which is lack energy, which I've talked about,
Hmm.
quite a bit here on the podcast. And, what I really am, seeing from you and like just throughout the mastermind is how much you energetically got behind your decisions as you went along, right? It was just like, and it's so interesting because I think that people think that it's going to take a long time, like, especially if they go, I don't know how to invest or something. But really, it reminds me a lot of like when you sort of get out of a relationship and like you might try and try and try, but someday you're just like, okay, I'm done. Right. And then you can't
Yeah.
you can't really go back because then your standard has changed. And I
Hmm.
feel that with you about money. I feel like now when it comes to investing, you're like, no, I'm not going back to that. Like it's like you can't. It's like it feels like someone's brushing your hair the wrong way or something.
Yeah, because and it's that state of like empowerment too. And so then I feel, especially as the waiting energy connecting to that, my waiting energy was out of scarcity, and
Mhm.
even I had the like with the emotional authority because, I if I make a decision on a high, And then I come down from that. I'm like, ooh, like that has happened. So there is some waiting, that like
Yes.
when you're an emotional authority that you actually do have to ride out. But it doesn't have to be a long 2-week process for that to happen. So I actually thought I was going to end up, and I mean, I know we have people in the mastermind who have talked about, buying houses, wanting to sell immediately, and they can do that. And I have a rental property and I have had tenants in it for 2 years, and they'll actually be out the end of this month. And I got the nudge to actually sell it. Like immediately I was like, oh, I'm going to sell this because I have goals of what I want like now being in this space too, like I know that I could at least expand my money, where before I didn't even know what I was going to do with that money, to actually help me expand. But now, like the way that you've shared all the things, I was like, wait, I'm not selling this. I was like, I'm going to keep it. This is my retirement plan, like that.
Yay.
So like there's that, like where I thought I was going to sell it. But then even just being in your space and like actually seeing more, I was like, no, that's actually not my truth. And my truth is I'm actually going to keep this property and end up renting it and having, this longer term.
Oh my God, do you know how I'm in such celebration of that that I just have to like pause and I have to say thank you for going vertical on that and for being open to looking at a plan that you had and to really frame it in, well, wait, what do I really want here and what's going on? Because I think so much, and I see this a lot out there where people are like, oh, just what's the latest thing I need to do? Give me the latest and great. What's everybody else doing or whatever? And I'm like, no. How about if you just beat your own drum? And I rarely sell things, rarely, because I'm like, just keep piling it on. Asset. It's an asset. Just keep piling. Oh my God, I'm so glad, Jess.
Yeah,
Amazing.
well, yeah, well, in the mastermind and you held the space and helped expand, me,
Yeah.
and like that's like who we surround ourselves with too. And I knew I had said I like always wanted to invest, always wanted to invest, and I think there's some divine timing into my waiting energy of not actually working with a financial advisor and all that, and being
Yes.
in your
Yeah.
space because you are giving us the power to do it on ourselves and the knowledge and to
Yeah.
feel connected to that versus handing it off to someone, and then a financial advisor could tell me, yeah, actually you should sell that property, pay off the debt, and then what would, and then like take that.
Hmm.
But that just didn't feel right. So like like having that space for the mastermind definitely helped, and being in like the container with everyone else who are in there, like who we
Hmm.
surround ourselves with helps us to be able to shape kind of and see more like our reality too.
Oh my God, you're so right. Who we surround ourselves with is determining our decisions for the most part. You're exactly right. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you're looking at that too, that I mean, you stepped into your own power and then it's that, but you also got access to a whole new set of answers that I don't know that you would have had, right? And now you get to do it forever. You get to do it
I know.
forever on your terms. And when you become a multimillionaire, if you want to hire someone to do part of it or whatever, I mean, in other words, like it's like the door's wide open for you to go anyway versus before the door was like, okay, I only can choose door one. And I think that's one of the things that I would like to remove with people with money. It's like, no, 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 you have access to all the doors. You just don't really know it yet.
Yeah, and you opened that for us so we could see it. So I feel like if I do work with a financial advisor, which I'm not a no to that, and I know we had that
Hmm.
come up in within the mastermind, I
Hmm.
feel like it's this spiritual aspect, that I will align with, like that financial advisor
Hmm.
having that connection. Because I bring that into the work that I do. You bring it, which is why I connected with you, because you bring it into the work that you do too, especially because like what you mentioned, like it is very 3D of us to do this, but then we have that connection, to the,
Hmm.
5D. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So, how did you like, what did you have as sort of your money beliefs and because we're talking about this waiting, which obviously there's underlying beliefs there. Like, do you feel like you kind of got this like from being a kid or like your previous experiences? Because I know a lot of people are like they're just feeling stuck in their own kind of the version of themselves that they're currently dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely does stem from childhood. I mean, I think I mean, my parents never invested anything. And so I think I saw, and my dad would always, say money doesn't grow on trees.
Mm,
And, like that,
hmm.
and he was working all the time.
Yes.
Like, he was self-employed. Like, so he expanded me in ways because he was self-employed, didn't have a degree, like did all that. But then also he was rooted in scarcity. When it came to money. So I definitely feel like the waiting, it probably was a result of like my childhood and not being surrounded and knowing anything, more. And I feel like when I got a job, like out of college and I worked for corporate and I invested, it's like the standard was just invest in 401(k). So it was just like kind of, following in like that path. And so I feel like the waiting kind of came of like no one expanded me outside of that to like really know like more. So everything was just what energy and like who I was with, and like I didn't know, like know things. So I think I was just in that like shelterness of being like in that like waiting energy. But no, I
Mm,
definitely had to work through all the limiting beliefs that came up earlier on. Like I had done a bunch of work as far as like the energetics even before coming into the mastermind. So that part
yeah.
um was good, but also like you expanded me for more limiting beliefs, to come up. I think one of the more recent ones that like came up was being single. I was like, I think I like stated this in one of the calls. I was like, I felt capped because one way that I thought that I could expand money is if I had a partner, then we would split expenses or, like that. And so then that naturally opens the door for expanding money. But that kind of goes back, then that's the waiting energy. And so then it kind of goes
Hmm.
back to, no, I actually get to do this, on myself and can do this, by myself. And then having a partner is just only gets to expand that, when that happens. But yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of my like waiting energy does stem from childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people would be on board with you on that. So what would you say what was the thing that kind of surprised you the most? Like, because I mean, it was a very tight-knit group that we just came out of. We just ended the last mastermind last week, and we were very vulnerable, very connected. But I would love to hear from you, like, what surprised you about it?
I've been in masterminds, before, and every mastermind, thankfully, that I have been a part of has brought that like close knit, connection with everyone
Mhm.
in there. So that didn't surprise me because I was expecting, because of how I connected with you was through my mentor, Christina Rice, because you were on her
Mhm.
podcast. So I knew like the energetic side, like we were just going to connect no matter who was in the mastermind. But I think what surprised me the most was I wasn't expecting to receive all that the transformation we received within the mastermind, because I go back to that waiting energy of me even like signing up for the weeks, and I was like, well, why am I going to do the mastermind? I could just do SI advanced, like you're going to give
Mhm.
us some stocks, like you have some calls. I almost was going to jump on a call with your team to be like, what's the point of me like I almost was there, but something within me was like, no, you got to do the mastermind, like all of that. So I think that's what surprised me was it is so much more than the other offerings that you have
Mhm.
because of the transfer, just all that you gave us and the transformation, and for us to dig deep. And I mean, you challenged everyone, like we would say something and you're like, no, I don't think that's it. Like, I think there's more. So like, but that's how we get, to the change and the transformation. So I think that honestly is what surprised me the most, because I did go into it like, okay, yeah, like she's going to show us what stocks to buy, and like kind of teach us that. But like there was like a lot more behind that.
God, I love it. I love hearing your interpretation of it. I know. Because I'm like, you get in there and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, the stock list is in advance, but welcome to the mastermind. Right?
Hmm. Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of, yeah, no. And the mastermind's so connecting for me. And I would say all of them are, but I mean, it's like we're there all clumped together, twice
Hmm.
a week for that amount of time. And I think what brings me into it more is your guys' vulnerability. I mean, I don't know if you realize how brave you are to come into a group and You're talking about some of the most personal things that you can possibly talk about. And then you've got someone going, well, I don't, maybe that's not it, or, need to look and you guys are like, it's like it just shows how much you want to change the world. It's like it shows your heart. It shows your resilience, your strength. And every call that you guys show up more, I'm like, well, shit, it's like I've told you, like it's like my rising is really a function of like your guys' rising, and I think this one in particular, which they're all really different, but the people who've joined multiple times, like one of them said, "Is it going to be the same next time?" And I'm like, kind of, but kind of not, right? But we always do start it with, "Okay, the game is on." Because I
Yeah.
feel like there's so few places in life right now where we actually like play the game is on with ourselves, because I think we let ourselves get it, myself included. We let ourselves get away with so much. And to have a container where it's like, okay, now you're going to meet the new version of yourself. Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Because I meet the new version of myself right alongside you guys.
Because in relationships and people reflect that back to us too, which is the
Yeah.
power also of like the mastermind, is because everyone's bringing their own stories, but they're not just bringing their stories, they are bringing the depths to them, and we're all bringing our vulnerabilities, which allows us to connect even more and find pieces of ourselves within that too. And then, of course, you being there, to hold the space for us to be able to like see that and to shift and for us to all come together and bond as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, and I want to hear from you, because this is just like curiosity kills the cat over here. I want to know, um, how does Jess now go out into the world being on the other side of this? Because I have a feeling that there's something, whether you've discovered it or not, maybe you haven't even thought about this. I don't know. There's something.
Well, I mean, I've already noticed it, within my work and even in my relationships. I like even throughout the mastermind, like talk about the waiting energy. And you mentioned it even being like connecting, like you mentioned relationships and not being able to go back to that relationship. And how do we see it? Like I went for a walk with my friend one day and she was talking about relationships and like really ending it, or like when should she end it? And I'm like, well, you already know you're ending. I was like, why are you, like in like this waiting energy. So like just the shifts are
I see.
coming up already, and then that's, expanding, like that energy is expanding into the world, because then I was able to share that with a friend and she was like, oh my
Good.
gosh, I didn't even see. And then like she ended up ending it and felt so good that she did it versus like after her vacation. I was like, yeah, you're going to be in your head. Like, don't you want to be on vacation? Like, not worry about this. So, like, it's shown
Mm.
up in that way. And then even in my work, like, I have a client and just having like I, obviously have the knowledge with like the real estate and the mortgage side, and then
Yeah.
like infuse the energetics behind it. But and one of my clients inherited, $1.3 million dollars. And so she was going to buy the house in cash. Now she does have a financial advisor, and this financial advisor was telling her like not to. And then she like kept wanting to do that just because I think, like that's what she thought would be good and safe, but she's already used to, renting and all these things. And now that like I can understand the more investment side of things, where before like I didn't necessarily have that background, I was able to actually have a conversation with her and
Oh, wow.
expand her on like the property,
Good.
like she's a first time home buyer, the property that she was going to be buying, and like the potential of that money making her more money, and like, the payment being what she's already paying for rent and all these things, and turning that into an investment, and then maybe having that be your like just all the things. So it's already infusing into my conversations and stuff like that, like with work.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you for giving me that example. That is actually a gift for me, because
Mm-hmm.
saying that, I was envisioning like, because we talked about diversification, and we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
like how you take the cash flow and then you're sort of doubling it up, right? But you take it from the rent and then you invest it and what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pie chart and all the different assets that you get to invest in, and the different, you've got your ladder, right? And so this cash will be for now and then later and later. And I love that you are now able to help people think that way, because I mean, everyone to think that way, but I think especially women don't typically think
Mm-hmm.
that way in terms of okay, well, this asset is going to start paying out at 48. Well, this asset is going to start paying out at 55. Well, then I have the option to work part-time because this asset's going to pay out at 58. I just don't think it's a way of thinking versus like for me, I'm like, how could you not think that way? Like, and for me, it's like, and I don't know how if you feel like this, but it's like it seems so easy when you start to think of that because then this is what really got me when I really shifted into this in my early 30s with thinking of these assets like as a ladder effect. And what I realized is I was like, oh my God, like the weight is lifted off my shoulders because I found myself, I was on the beach in Australia when I was thinking about this, and I found myself like feeling like the weight of my shoulders when it came to retirement, let's say. Oh my God, I have to like, all this money in retirement and I have to have no mortgage and all these rules that like,
Mhm.
the world puts in our head, right? Financial world especially. And then I thought, no, I just have to put a certain amount towards retirement. Let me just figure out what the minimum is. And then anytime I have a few extra thousand, I'll just throw it towards it. Then what I can do is that's done. Because I've checked that box, go along the way. Then I'm like, okay, well, if I don't want to have to work in my 50s, then what do I do then? Well, okay, then you figure out that plan. Well, then you just do that. Check, check, check.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, I found myself with like, I think it was 5 to 6 during, I don't know, the next few years after that I'd created of cash flows
Yeah.
just in a few years, one of them being like even a horse rescue, which wasn't a lot of cash flow, but I felt really great about that one because it sustained itself and then it had a few hundred extra dollars that I could put in and put towards the horses and whatever. I didn't really care about the amount. I was just like, it became the strategy became the lifestyle. And I
Mhm.
think that's what you're able to depart now. And what an enriching conversation that you're able to have with your clients now. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, shifted because I can definitely, like I obviously I mean numbers are numbers,
Yes.
like that's the truth as far as like numbers. So I always make sure people are comfortable with like numbers, but like I'm not going or before like I mean I would go into ways of being like okay, yeah, when if you're offsetting this property as a rental to buy a new one like that, but that was like to the extent of like my conversation, but now I can take it even more and
Yes.
have them see the expansion of it. And so
Yes.
like that, like it just happened last week and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And so it just felt like really, good to have that because she was a single female, so like
Yes.
it just was very like it just yeah, was very empowering. Yeah.
That's so great. Oh my God. So now you're one of the people like us who are like, yeah, you got $100,000. Okay, here's what we're gonna
Yeah.
do with it, right? Okay, so we're gonna put 20 in crypto, we're gonna put
Yeah.
50 in stocks, we're gonna put blah 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 blah. And they're like, really? And then
Yeah.
no waiting energy. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, like Warren Buffett, it's like you ask him, what's the best time to invest? Yesterday. What's the second best time to invest? Today, now.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's yeah, that, and then I think that's the thing is like, because I mean, talking about numbers and how they don't lie, and I know this came up in like our mastermind is like, because we can just get caught up on seeing like, is the stock up? Is it down? Like, what is our like portfolio
Yeah.
doing? But if it's down, like, and I think someone said this and we all like connected, like what we all came to the conclusion of is like when it's down, it's like, no, that's a great time to invest. And if it's up, like we get to
Yeah.
celebrate, that too. And so, yeah, there's opportunity in all of it.
Yes, it is. And it becomes so fun. And I'm just in such appreciation of you sharing your story and just your energy and everything. But I'm also like, you know, hopefully people are seeing how fun it is. Because that's the thing, like that is what has been missing, I feel like, from money for a while. It's like, oh my God, let me just be stodgy and I got to be so serious and I got to be so responsible. Okay, if you're having fun, that does not mean that you're not being responsible.
Hmm.
It's like I think we need to sort of like blow that up, right? And then like, okay, so I'll just give you an example just real quick myself this morning. So I woke up this morning. I laid in bed and I like planned out like some stuff that I had that I wanted to do with the company because I'm meeting with my team today. And then I get up and the market hadn't opened yet. And then I make my coffee, and then I look, and I'm like, okay, market's open. And it was probably, I don't even know if I was done with that cup of coffee. And this is just my one play account. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wow, I'm not done with my coffee. And I just made $860. And the market barely moved. The market was
Mm-hmm.
doing almost nothing. Like that's a very small day, right? And I'm not saying that because, I'm like, okay, this is what my life is like. I'm saying that because it becomes, and I can feel this is happening with you too, Jess, like invest now that you're not waiting, you've got that out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's nothing in between you and investing now. And so it becomes a normal way of being for you. And I don't think that people realize that also what becomes a normal way of being for you is I just made $860 and I'm not done with my coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's like now I have it part of my like, every month, like my money is going towards my investment account. And like even in the mastermind, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna double it. I'm gonna increase it. And I think I even like shared during that, like I was met with the version of myself too, like, can I do, like, can I even like do this? But kind of like how you said, you drank a cup of coffee and made $800, like,
Mhm.
and I've always been supported. So I'm like, I'm gonna be, like, I'm gonna be supported. So I'm, going to do that. So I was met with that version, of myself and that money, like, I think you've even shared like in past masterminds, like people have taken that to pay off debt and stuff like that,
Yes.
which helped me actually release, I think, a lot for a lot of people who have debt, like come like shame, and then like people don't want to open up or like share anything, about that or even, when it comes to something like that, but it doesn't, have to be. So it helped me even change like my relationship with it and just realizing that like that was an energy exchange and a lot of what is connected behind it was actually for personal development and stuff like that, so like it
Mhm.
will get paid off and I'm using my money to expand and can actually get paid off sooner by doing something like this versus waiting to invest.
Oh my God, I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah, because I think so many people, and I get it, that's actually what the financial industry on a whole teaches, which is pay off all of your debt and then invest. But okay, so then you miss the market over and over again, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and the last 2 years the market's gone up 24% and 26%. Okay, so that probably would have paid off debt, right? Even this year the market is up, right? So that's the one thing you missed that. The second thing is um you've got a lack-based plan because most people have some guilt about their debt, and it's not fun to just sit around and work all the time and pay off freaking debt.
Mhm.
Like, come on, we didn't come here, we're source energy. We didn't come here on earth to be like, like stuck in this paying off debt thing. It's just like ick. So that is amazing. And it shows the power of you that you were like, you know what? I'm going to use investing, and you really use the momentum and the power, the empowerment of you is what you chose over the debt, which is lack of empowerment.
Yes. And I think I could go back to journal entries of, like even showing like I would, like every year or two, like, okay, this is going to happen, but it's like every year I could probably go back and see myself in that same pattern. And then it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until now, like I'm in that momentum energy because I'm connected to that expansion and having money go into an investment account and it's rooting me into that fun. It's very fun, and that like
Mm-hmm.
fun energy. And then now it's even changing things as far as like the debt versus staying in that energy of all I have is, my bills and my debt, and then, other things that, I'm putting my money into savings. But yeah, so it's definitely shifted that.
Yeah, I mean, the debt, I mean, I can feel it for you. The debt is just so, that's like it's almost like invisible. It's like this thing over
Mhm.
here that's like because the other things in your life are so bright. And it's like we all know the spiritual principle, right? It's like you want something to go away. What do? You take your attention away from it. It's like a plant that dies. So you know that the debt is over here in this space, but like you said, you stay in the pattern, then what you're going to do is you're just going to keep that debt is going to stay in that loop. And I'm so glad that you
Mhm.
saw that. And what it's really helping me to understand, so thank you, is because I'm always trying to, it's really funny. Like, I mean, I've been running this mastermind for a long time, and I'm still, to a certain degree, looking at what really is this container of, obviously I can feel it and I can see what people are getting from it. But like what I saw in your conversation is um a lot of what this mastermind is it's a breaking of the structure. And so and then this is like, I mean, I go into things like this too to have my pattern broken as well, because I don't know that we can effectively do that because we have all of these stories and the layers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And by not being your best friend in there, right? And being like, well, like it's like, okay, so ideally we break the structure and then you meet the new version and you approach that and you find and you create a fun new way. But not
Mm-hmm.
everything in it is fun. And I guess I want people to know that too. Like we go through some, I mean,
Yeah.
there's people crying in there. Like it is not
Yeah.
like it, like we're not going to Disneyland over here.
No.
I don't think we could get done in 12 weeks what we get done if we were going to go to Disneyland, and I don't think I could do that. You know what, it's kind of an integrity thing for me personally. Like if you're going to show up with your attention, and told you guys this day one, you're going to go vertical, so am I. The deeper you go, it's like, okay, well now I gotta really, own up on this. I gotta get better sleep. I gotta get really think about this. I gotta really design into this because it's custom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah.
You guys, I mean, it really is. It's a play off of your guys' energy. And it's seriously one of the most enjoyable things that I do. I mean, this podcast is just like my joy. And I would say the mastermind. I love all the other groups as well, for sure. But I love the challenge that I get from the mastermind.
Yeah. Well, because it is pushing or like it's calling out all those pieces of ourselves that,
Yeah.
are wanting to change and why we came here and we made the investment. So it's like, well, we might as well do it. We're here. Like, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Yeah. And the questions go all over. Like they are all over the map, aren't they? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
everything.
Well, I
Yeah.
think like even our first call, I don't remember if we did breakout groups or it was like the second one. I mean, like
Yeah.
we literally dove in. Like like you had introduction, then like you brought the depth of the questions and we all, like we just dove into it. But that's,
Yes.
why we were there for, we
Yeah.
wanted things to change and we can see that coming from you too. And so like obviously, that's why a lot of us were called into it. And
Yeah.
so to be able to do that, like we have to do the work to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one thing that I do stay true to with the design is everybody's investing by week 3. And I'm like, well, shit, we have to come out of the gates like racehorses in this mastermind. If everybody is going to be ready to invest, even if it's, $20, it's like, and I like that, because I think what it does is it just rips the band-aid off, and then I think people get a point of relief after that. Like, oh my God, like why have I been like putting this
Hmm.
kind of weird, awkward box over here that doesn't belong into?
Yeah, it will, and it kind of allows us to open up, more for
Hmm.
to do that too. So yeah.
Yeah, or even the people that have already been investing and come in. I mean, we had some people in there that had multi-million-dollar investing accounts, and they were like, I love their questions too. And I love everyone
Hmm.
hearing their questions because I think that sometimes people assume if you've got a multi-million-dollar investing account, you've got all your shit figured out and you don't worry about money at all. Well, you get to see firsthand. That's not true. It's almost like the same person. Did you notice that, Jess? It's like the
Hmm.
person who's never invested and the person who has that is almost the same because their resonance when it comes to their money frequency is the same. And that sort of community, like that coming together of being able to, hopefully for people, they don't feel so behind.
Yeah, well, and that's the merging aspect of the work that you're doing, with us going through the deep layers of the work and then having, what can we do and how can we manage? Because I mean, I have friends too that have, money, passed down through family, but they still have, limiting beliefs when it comes to money.
Hmm.
So this mastermind, is a space where you said it, like breaking the structure, to not have, to be able to be met with the higher and newer version of ourselves. So we don't, because we're limiting ourselves, like limiting, like if divine timing, but like even having that client, to be able to talk to her about like the expansion, like I would have been a different version of myself and I, maybe wouldn't have had that conversation or maybe, she would have done like a different path, but like we're preventing ourselves from expanding more people, by being
Yeah,
stuck in our, like limiting beliefs, even if we have money or we don't. And it's just not doing a service to ourselves either because it's impacting like how we show up. So,
you're exactly right. And that leads me into my next question for you because I want to know like what is your future? Like what do you want? I know you have an energy healing business, you have the you're a mortgage broker. Like what's your vision with yourself? Like what do you want?
my vision is, because I think we in the group too, like you have our like thinking of that like 3 year to retire and all
Mhm.
of that, which was did not triggering, needless to say, it was very exciting because I was like, ooh, okay, this is, anchoring me into what do I want, but like sooner and maybe speeding up the timeline because I've said things in the past where I'm like, oh, in 5 years this is going to happen and it's actually happened. And I'm like, what if that actually could have happened in 3 years? So what I'm most excited about is doing the work that I do as a mortgage broker and just helping people expand, their energy around buying a home. And then having the energetics, with that, because I think too, in our like physical homes, like there, there's energy attached to it, or if homes are not selling and like stuff like that, like people have this attachment to it, maybe why things are, sitting a little bit longer or why people go into homes and they feel the energy's off, or even just our home in itself, like our physical body needing to, release cords and attachments and stuff like that. So the future me is very happy with what I am, do or like still doing now and but just expanding that on a, greater scale and hopefully helping more people invest and expand in the real estate aspect, but also like in themselves.
That's amazing. So, could you help someone who, let's say that they're thinking, okay, I might want to buy a home, I might want to buy a rental property, a primary home. Could you help them do that if they came to you?
Yes. So actually, my team and I were licensed in, I don't want to say all 50 states because we're not licensed in New York, but in most of the states. So yes, can
Mhm.
definitely help whether it, it be to buy, or even,
Wow.
taking out equity to end up buying another home. Yeah, so definitely.
That is so amazing because now, well, I'm sure there's lots of investors who are listening to this, but there's also the people who are in the spiritual investor who, that is part of their 3-year plan is to, because that's one of the assets that we talk about, that it is important to
Hmm.
have real estate in your portfolio because it behaves different than stocks. And so you want both. And so moving towards that. And so I'm assuming if someone's like, hey, I want to do this, and now that you have your understanding of diversification and that you're on a different frequency now with money. So I would imagine that they could even come to you and be like, well, I'm not there yet, but what can I do to get there kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of it is like mindset, and people will just, even how people come to me, and, like sometimes I feel like we are like a therapist, 'cause this is, it's a big
Yes.
expense and stuff like that that people,
Huge.
are like taking on. So just even having that groundedness, of the energetic side of things, like it is portrayed in the work and the clients that I work with, which I find just very fulfilling in itself,
Mhm.
that every day that I get to do this. So, and to have it merge, like, I mean, you get to do it too. And it is
Yes.
a beautiful gift when I stopped fighting both passions and merged them. And I was like, huh, look at this.
Yeah, which is also inspiring to people, anyone who's listening to this, because you're not two different people. You're actually one
Mm-mm.
person. And like you see these people that are talking about, okay, show up your authentic self. Well, on some degree, can you if you don't get to talk about like, would you want to, That's really incredible. And your energy is calling people to you. And the fact that you do energy work, I mean, you have a really beautiful, warm, inviting energy. And I can imagine, like, I mean, if I was, in a position, that I was in 20 years ago when I'd never bought a house, I'd be like, oh my God, I've been looking for someone like you. Because I think that's part of the reason that even people come to the spiritual investor is there's a there's almost like a trust safety thing. And, it's like you have that, right? Because you're not going to make anybody feel less than if they have a
Mm-mm.
question, right? Like, I mean, I love simple questions, and what question is simple anyways? If it's your question, it's your question, right?
Oh yeah,
Love
I
that.
I always tell everyone like please ask me any and every. I love
Yeah.
first time home buyers because of
Yeah.
that, because I want them to understand everything and I love their questions because they seem to
Yeah.
have like most questions versus they've already gone through the process because there's so much to it. So I'm like I want you to truly understand and because there's a lot in the industry too that, like you could work with people and like I've just heard stories, I'm like I don't know how you experience that and I'm so sorry, but like there's yeah, there's a lot behind it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just say this as well, having bought a lot of homes, there is there's a process that you have to go through that sometimes feels like nails on a chalkboard, and I'm sure that you would be very comforting in that. And there also is there's a level of vulnerability that people have
Hmm.
to go through. I mean, you have to sign all this stuff and you have to do all this stuff, and it's like, but I tell you, I have never purchased a home that I wasn't like, thank God. And you know what? Of course, I remember the home now, or some of the homes I still have. I don't remember all the shitty going and sitting and doing
Hmm.
paperwork stuff. Like
No.
I can't even remember that anymore.
Yeah, no, you would eventually forget. But yeah, there's a lot of paperwork. But I mean, if someone's lending you, hundreds of thousands,
That's
to a
right.
million
There has
dollars,
to be. Yes.
there has to be,
Yes. Yes.
so.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jess, for being part of this, for coming and sharing your story, and for going vertical yourself and really going inward. And now look how you're radiating out there. I'm in just such appreciation of that.
Yes, and thank you for doing your work because, it's a reminder to myself too, to continue doing my work because of if you weren't, then I wouldn't, be in this position either. And so if there is anyone out there, that is questioning, whether I mean, you have all avenues of spaces to be in. And I was
Yeah.
even getting dinner with a friend on over the weekend and I was like, just listen to her podcast, like
Yeah.
just, do something to get yourself in that energy. But cannot recommend, the mastermind, enough. So life
Oh, thank
changing.
you. Thank you, Jess. God, thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are definitely going to we would keep in touch anyways, I think, just because, we've been connected in the mastermind, but definitely with regards to, I think you're going to help a lot of people here listening, and probably even through, some of the spiritual investor people. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And you can't get rid of me. I'll be in SI advanced for sure.
Yes, I know. I love having you in advanced. And
Yeah.
advanced is a really, that container itself is kind of changing and taking on new form and new shape. We're doing a hell of a lot of breaking the structure in there too, I would say.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so okay. Well, thank you, Jess.
Thank you.